Why 480?
It's the number that drives our work lives.
480 minutes. That's all you have every workday.
And the decisions that you make each minute can change everything.
When you plan out your business goals over the next 2 years, that's only 480 workdays to get it done.
In your entire 40-year career, you've only got 480 months to make an impact with your work.
Time is the limit we can't control.
Because time is your most precious resource.
This is the Leadership 480 podcast.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Leadership 480 podcast from DDI. My name is Craig Irons.
And I'm Beth Alms.
And we, along with some other voices you'll hear in the coming months, will be your hosts for the Leadership 480 podcast. We think you're really going to find this podcast to be both fun and informative, and really our hope is this time you spend with us will help make you a better leader. And to give you a sense for what we're going to be talking about, Beth, can you chime in and just tell a little bit about what we're going to be talking about on this podcast?
Yeah, this is really about the human side of leadership. So often we hear about, all the skills and all the experience you need to have to get to be a leader and all the things you have to do at work. But this is about those stories where, people are struggling and they're trying to figure it out. So from those everyday moments of interaction, you go home at night and you're like, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I'd handled that differently. We're going to be talking about all those little moments that really, kind of keep you up at night as a leader, as well as some of the business challenges that people are facing, how they're approaching them from a leadership perspective. And then definitely the big moments of transformation in your career where you're stepping into a new role. You've probably got no idea what you're doing. You're trying to adjust and sort of find your way in the wilderness. We hear this all the time from people. They feel like they're totally lost in these new roles. And so we're hoping to bring some of these stories to life about leadership so that people can feel like they're not alone in dealing with these challenges and have some support from our experts as well as leaders just like you.
It's going to be some really good stuff, and we're really excited that you're along on the ride with us. Now, you may be wondering about our name, the Leadership 480 podcast. So what do we mean by Leadership 480, and how does it apply to you? Well, to help explain it, we have a very special guest with us today. David Tessmann-Keys is the president of DDI, the company behind this podcast and Leadership 480. David, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Craig. Great to be here.
Now let's get right to it. Can you explain the 480 concept, what it is, and why it should matter to leaders?
Sure, Craig. Well, essentially, it's about looking at leadership across three different horizons. Okay? Now, the first is 480 or 480 minutes, which is essentially the number of minutes in an 8-hour workday. Another way of looking at that is that's about the time that a leader would often spend engaging with their teams and with individuals across any one day. Secondly, it's 480 days. It's approximately the number of work days in a 2-year period. Okay? And often when you look at organizational strategy, leaders are accountable for driving. They will more often go over an 18-month, 2-year period. And finally, 480 months. That's about the number of months in a 40-year career. Now, we think it's important for leaders to keep all three of these three horizons in mind as they lead their teams, track trends impacting their business, and managing their careers.
So Leadership 480 is something we talk about here at DDI, but really this is something that should have a big impact for any leader, right?
No, absolutely, Beth. This isn't just a DDI concept. It's one that's grounded in the reality of being a leader every day. Leaders need to focus on the day-to-day moments of leadership, but they also not lose sight of the forces that are impacting their business. And of course, decisions that leaders make every day can have a long-term impact on their career. So yes, we believe all of these horizons are important, whether DDI is leading the conversation about them or not.
Now let's dig into each of those horizons just a little bit more. And let's start by talking about the 480 minutes leaders have every day. What are some of the challenges leaders are confronted with on a daily basis?
Well, leaders are critically important, of course, Craig. And in their roles, they lead and they inspire people. They drive engagement. They impact customer satisfaction and the overall health of their business. You also can't stress enough how much leaders, how it's a tough job, and the impact it has on the lives of others. Now that includes after they leave their workplace during the day. We lead as parents, we lead as volunteers, as youth sport coaches, and the list goes on and on. But it's worth mentioning that a great many leaders are struggling to make that impact every day, which is why we think it's very important to openly talk about those struggles.
Now, it's getting harder and harder to be a leader, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And our research confirms that leaders, especially frontline leaders, they receive very little training or preparation. In fact, the research indicates that 2/3 of frontline leaders felt unprepared for their role. 60% of frontline leaders say they never received any training at all for the role. And 87% of first-time leaders feel frustrated, they feel anxious, or they feel uncertain. So it's time we acknowledge that just as leaders have an opportunity to make a difference every day, it's a really tough job.
Yeah, it's about cutting people a little bit of slack, right? We complain about our bosses all the time, but you've got to think about all the things that they're going through on a daily basis. And a lot of it is really just they're strapped for time. They're honestly tired. And sometimes all these things we complain about, the micromanaging, your leader snapped at you, or you're having trouble with your boss, a lot of it is that they are tired and no one really ever told them how to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a balancing act as well, I think, Beth, from those micro moments of interactions with an individual that can really impact how that individual's level of engagement and their performance, whilst at the same time also considering, where's my career going? How am I going to evolve myself as a leader? Whilst also at the same time, what am I accountable for delivering from an organisational strategy perspective? So how you bring those three together at every moment and every day, it's a real challenge.
So David, I want to go back to what you're talking about, what people are responsible for delivering. And that's really their business challenges ahead, right? They've got goals probably over the next 2 years. That's really only about 480 work days. And it's a number that seems like a lot up front, but I think as we all know, it's really not so many. The quarters roll by and you're not reaching your metrics and time goes by faster. So why don't you talk about why is this horizon so important for leaders?
Well, leadership doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Teams don't work in a vacuum. Organizations don't exist in a vacuum. So there's a major forces that are impacting industries, organizations, in their leaders. Those can include everything from continued advancements of technology, the need for digital transformation, to the challenges associated with diversity and inclusion, to the presence of multiple generations in the workplace, to economic factors, to the dizzying pace of work. These are among the forces, the issues, the trends that leaders need to think about. They especially need to think about how they impact the people that they are leading.
Yeah, a lot of times we see companies, right, they set these mandates for we're going to reach this business goal, or we're going to drive innovation or create an inclusive environment, and then they don't actually tell people how to do that. They set the metrics before they give people the skills to actually follow through. And that's a huge challenge for leaders to say, okay, I'm supposed to be driving innovation or creating an inclusive environment. I honestly have no idea how to do that.
As we said, Beth, at the same time, I'm not only thinking about how do I execute that strategy, but I'm also thinking about how to engage my team. I've got to select new members into my team. I've got to manage performance. I've also got to worry about where's my career going. So it's the multitude of forces coming at an individual leader, and how do they actually get the balance right?
David, let's talk about that career aspect. Careers aren't what they used to be in terms of people doing the same job or, in many cases, working for the same employer for decades. So how do leaders need to think about their careers now and moving forward?
Well, Craig, I think we'd all agree the future has never been less certain for leaders today. But that's not to say that there aren't skills, traits, or behaviours leaders will always need. Yeah? So leading people will always be challenging. The ability to communicate effectively, provide coaching, handle people-related problems will always be needed. They're evergreen skills. But I think the big thing leaders must do now is accept that their career is a journey. It's one that will likely include a number of twists and turns and detours, unexpected adventures along the way. It's also important to be open to learning new skills and to adopt a growth mindset, and to expect and even embrace the fact that change will be always present in the business environment, and therefore change will always be present in your own world. How do you manage that? How do you prepare yourself for that? So leadership is an adventure. It can be especially worthwhile and exhilarating if you're ready to accept it and you're always evolving with the way that your organization and the markets are evolving.
And that growth mindset you mentioned, it's so important, isn't it? I mean, it's just critical for leaders to keep moving forward and attaining new skills and developing and growing, isn't it?
Yeah, the way I often refer to it, Craig, is it's about being future ready or future proof. How do I ensure I'm future proof in terms of my leadership skills, so I'm ready for the next challenge that comes around the corner?
And I think one of the things we often underestimate is just how hard it is to step into these new leadership jobs. What we know is that, we celebrate these promotions that people get, and that's great, and we're so happy for them, but realistically, when they step into that new job, all the things that worked for them before that they were really good at, they may not be what you need to do in this new job, and they're utterly confused. And what's interesting is we see this really at every level, right? All the way up even to executives. What we've heard from the people who are our executive coaches, that even CEOs, they get in this job and they're like, yeah, I've done great my whole career, but I have no idea how to do this next thing. And it's really a challenge and can be very lonely as they're dealing with these issues.
Yeah, and that's certainly on the individual leadership level. But to your point as well, Beth, it's thinking about the individuals who are within your team and within your organisation. They're going through just exactly the same process. It's new, it's different. How do I make this work? And understand that you've got to bring people along, create an environment where those individuals feel comfortable and have got the skills in order to execute against those business plans.
So, yeah, and one of the things we want to talk about too is, yes, for leaders, it's about the work, but it's also about who you are as a person. And leadership really does change you, who you are at work, who you are at home, how you interact with people. And these moments of leadership are really important, and they stick with you sometimes a long, long time. You remember those. So, David, can you tell us about a profound moment in your career that really affected you as a leader?
Yeah, look, this harks back a number of years now, probably 18 to 20 years, when I first stepped into an operational leadership role. And my leader at that point in time shared some feedback with me and some observations with me. And this was based on the experience that he'd had working with me over a number of years. Apparently, I was quite gung-ho. I'd see a problem and I'd just go and attack it, and just try to solve the problem. On occasion, maybe not giving it too much thought in terms of what are the implications of the actions I might put into play. Okay? So his feedback to me, and he said one sentence to me, and it's always stuck with me. He said, if you're going to light a fire, make sure you've got a way to put it out. And what he was really saying was, if you want to make some significant change, you want to drive some significant change, be sure you've got a plan to achieve continuity and stability post that change. Because change is going to have a range of different effects. If not managed well and thoughtfully, it'll backfire on you. So I've always remembered that statement. And as I stepped into different leadership roles over my career, and as I've been a change agent, which I like to think I am on occasions, I always stop and I think to myself, I'm about to light a fire. Now, how am I going to put it out? So that's just one example of how even just one simple statement and a leader's preparedness to give honest, open feedback to their direct reports can really change the course of someone's career and the decisions they make.
David Tessmann-Keys, that is really good stuff. Thank you for spending some time with us today and explaining the Leadership 480 concept to us.
My pleasure, Craig. Thank you.
So, Beth, would you like to tell our listeners about some of the specific topics we're going to be talking about on the podcast?
Sure. I mean, these are the stories of leadership. So this is going to be everything that leaders are dealing with, whether it's, working with virtual reality in the workplace or struggling with diversity and inclusion, specific challenges for maybe women leaders, or, everyone loves to complain about the millennials, but maybe talking about some of the more realistic aspects of dealing with multi-generational workforces. Really, nothing is off the table. We're going to be talking about all those challenges of leadership and bringing those stories to life.
Thanks, Beth. And as for what's ahead, we're going to go at leadership from multiple angles. We're going to have some great conversations, and we hope we're going to give you information, insights, practical advice, stuff you can actually use every day to make you a better leader. Beth, I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope our listeners are as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, and we want to thank you all for giving us a part of your 480 today. I'm Beth Alms.
And I'm Craig Irons.
And we want to remind you to make every moment of leadership count.
You've been listening to the Leadership 480 podcast. To learn more about 480 leadership, visit ddiworld.com/480.